We're a family, but strangers at first sight. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, crisp and official, smelling faintly of old paper and something else I couldn't quite place, like dust and potpourri. It was from a lawyer informing me of my biological father, a man named Abigail Thorne, residing in Thorne Estate, Massachusetts. I was adopted. I'd known that since I was old enough to understand what adopted meant. My parents were wonderful, loving, and I never felt like I was missing anything. Except, maybe, a piece of myself. A root I couldn't quite grasp. Abigail Thorne. The name felt foreign, yet somehow familiar. A ghost of a memory stirring in the back of my mind. The lawyer enclosed a photo. A stately man with piercing blue eyes and a silver mustache, standing in front of an imposing house that looked like it belonged in a Gothic novel. After weeks of agonizing, of back-and-forth emails with the lawyer who was surprisingly tight-lipped, I decided to go. I needed to see. To know. My adoptive parents, bless their hearts, understood. They saw the flicker of something new in my eyes, a need that even they couldn't fulfill. The drive was long, winding through the Massachusetts countryside, the leaves a riot of reds and oranges under a perpetually gray sky. The air grew colder, the trees denser, until I felt like I was entering another world. Then, I saw it. Thorne Estate. It was even more imposing in person. Gray stone, Gothic architecture, and a sense of foreboding that settled deep in my bones. A long, winding driveway led to the front entrance, where a stooped figure waited. Elias. He greeted me with open arms, a practiced smile, and those unsettlingly blue eyes. "Sarah," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Welcome home." The house was cavernous and filled with antiques. Dark wood, heavy drapes, portraits of stern-looking ancestors staring down from the walls. It smelled of beeswax and damp stone. "Let me introduce you to the family," Elias said, leading me into a large drawing room. Clara, his wife, was elegant and reserved, with a cool smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Daniel, my half-brother, was eager and overly friendly, bombarding me with questions about my life. Emily, my half-sister, was quiet and withdrawn, avoiding eye contact. She seemed scared. Dinner was a tense affair. Elias dominated the conversation, telling stories about the Thorne family history, their successes, their contributions to the community. Clara remained mostly silent, observing. Daniel tried too hard to impress me. Emily picked at her food, her eyes darting around the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house creaked and groaned around me, settling into the silence like an old beast. I kept hearing whispers, faint and indecipherable. I chalked it up to nerves. The next few days were a blur of forced smiles and awkward interactions. Elias showed me around the estate, pointing out historical landmarks and family heirlooms. Daniel took me on hikes through the woods, telling me about the local folklore, tales of witches and dark magic. Emily remained distant, a ghost in her own home. I started noticing things. The portraits. They seemed to follow me with their eyes. The way the family moved, like a well-rehearsed dance, the strange rituals they performed, lighting candles at dusk, chanting in Latin, burying small objects in the garden. Mrs. Henderson, the housekeeper, a woman with kind eyes and a weary smile, started leaving me little notes. "Be careful, dearie," one read. "This house has secrets." Another. "They aren't who they seem." One afternoon, while exploring the attic, I found a hidden room. Inside, there was an old journal, bound in leather and filled with handwritten entries. It detailed the Thorne family history, going back centuries. It spoke of a pact they had made with something dark, something that demanded a sacrifice in exchange for wealth and power. The entries grew more disturbing over time, detailing rituals, sacrifices, and a growing sense of dread. Then I read about a 10-year-old girl, Abigail Thorne, daughter to Elias. She died suddenly and under strange circumstances. I confronted Emily. She was pale and trembling. "It's true," she whispered. They're all involved. They need to feed it. Every generation." "Feed what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The house, she said, her eyes wide with terror. The land. It needs something. A sacrifice. A young woman. Someone new to the family. My blood ran cold. Daniel's behavior was becoming more erratic. He kept pressuring me to participate in the family rituals, telling me it was tradition. He spoke of the family legacy and how I needed to uphold it. One night, I woke to find him standing in my room, his eyes glazed over. "It's time, Sarah," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "Time to become one of us." I screamed. He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. I fought him off and ran, out of the room, down the hallway, into the cold, dark night. I ran until I reached the edge of the woods, gasping for breath. I could hear them behind me, Elias and Daniel, calling my name. I stumbled through the trees, desperate to escape. I found a dirt road and followed it, hoping it would lead me to help. I flagged down a passing car, a beat-up pickup truck driven by a man with a friendly face. "Please," I said, my voice trembling. "I need help. They're trying to kill me." He looked at me with concern. "Who is?" "My family," I said. "The Thornes. They're evil." He drove me to the local sheriff's office. Sheriff Brody was a burly man with a skeptical expression. He listened to my story, his eyes narrowed. "The Thornes," he said. "They're a pillar of this community. I've known them my whole life. They wouldn't hurt a fly." He dismissed my claims as hysteria, telling me I was probably just stressed from traveling. He offered to take me back to the estate, but I refused. I spent the night in a cheap motel, my mind racing. I knew I had to get out of there, to expose the Thornes for what they were. The next morning, I went back to the estate, determined to gather evidence. I snuck onto the property, avoiding the main house, and made my way to the hidden room in the attic. The journal was gone. I heard footsteps behind me. It was Mrs. Henderson. She looked pale and frightened. "You need to leave, dearie," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "They know you know. They won't let you leave." "I need to get proof," I said. "I need to show people what they're doing." "There's no time," she said. "They're coming." She led me to a hidden passage behind a bookshelf, a secret escape route that the Thornes had used for generations. "Go," she said, "and don't ever come back." I hesitated. "What about you?" "Don't worry about me," she said, forcing a smile. "I'm old. I've lived a good life. Just go. Save yourself." I ran through the passage into the woods. I could hear them behind me, shouting my name. I made it to the town, breathless and terrified. I ran to the sheriff's office, hoping to convince him to help me. But when I got there, something was wrong. The town was quiet, eerily so. People were walking around, but they seemed different. Their eyes were blank, their smiles forced. Sheriff Brody was sitting at his desk, his face pale. He looked up at me, his eyes devoid of emotion. "Sarah," he said, his voice flat, "we've been waiting for you." I realized then that the Thornes' influence extended beyond the estate. They controlled the town, the people, everything. I turned and ran, back into the streets, desperate to escape. But there was nowhere to go. Everyone was watching me, their eyes following my every move. I found myself standing in front of a store window, staring at my reflection. And then I saw it. A fleeting glimpse of Abigail Thorne's face superimposed over my own. Her eyes, her smile, her emptiness. I understood. I wasn't just a victim. I was a vessel, another pawn in their twisted game. My arrival hadn't been a reunion, it had been a selection. Then everything went black. I woke up in a bed, unfamiliar but with an unsettling familiarity. The room was dark, the air thick with the scent of dust and potpourri. A woman was in a rocking chair, gently rocking. She slowly turned her head to face me. It was Clara. "Welcome home, Abigail." Or maybe I didn't wake up at all.